because I don't get to talk to that many like third or fourth generation Asian Canadians. So I get
Yeah.
excited.
Well, it's like I rarely meet anybody. Like that's why I'm like, so because it's a bit of a different perspective. Because like, my friend, she said, "Yeah, you're pretty white." And I would be
Get that all the time.
like, how am I pretty white? Like I don't get treated that way. I don't speak that way. For her, she's Chinese Canadian, second generation, but definitely had a really different experience. Um, her half of her family, her brother and sister were tons older than her, and they were born in another country. And so their experience was completely different from hers. And, so she saw me as being white. And I'm like, so white means that I have the cultural norms of being in Canada. I or being in Vancouver. I get it. But on the other hand, I was like, don't totally feel like I fit because I'm definitely not white.
Ah, oh man, yeah, I definitely understand that. Where it's like, okay, so I'm kind of halfway between, I guess. Um, a lot of my friends are first, second generation. I was born in 1996, so a lot of my friends, that's kind of when China took Hong
Yep.
Kong back. A lot of my
Yep.
friends came over around that.
1997.
A lot of my friends came over at that time. Um,
Yeah.
so I have a lot of friends that were either like just born here or like they were born in Hong Kong and they came over here like when they were one or something. There's a huge culture gap between them and their parents. And yeah, it's just different. Like their experience of what it means to be Asian is completely different from mine.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I mean, even more so, I went to school and was friends with folks whose parents and like adult family lived in Hong Kong or Macau or somewhere else and had sent their kids, my friends, to live with their grandmother in a house in Vancouver and, to grow up there. And so their realities were completely different. Even like they had privilege of a lot of money, but not a lot of parenting and not a lot of understanding of how to actually live in a pretty racist world. And
I feel like
so,
even within the Asian community, we don't really understand each other. Like
yeah,
there's a huge range and it's
yeah.
so different. Yeah.
Oh, it totally is. But then you go to another country, because I lived in Thailand for a little bit. That was totally bizarre because I thought that I, I was Asian, but I distinctly did didn't feel like I fit in, and people there didn't feel like I fit in either. You're just feeling as though that's a whole different range of things because I was like, oh wow, like these are sort of my people, but not. It's such a weird, mind-blowing kind of place to be.
First time I went to Asia, I was like, I feel like people don't look at me the same way. Like they kind of just look at me and they're like, oh, whatever. Same old, which is kind of nice. It's comforting that how invisible I am. But as soon as we start talking, it's like, oh, they know. We're
Yeah,
not we're not of the same ilk at all.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, I mean, I went on a trip, a really short and fast tour trip of Japan with my mom, and that I didn't identify with anybody at all. And they totally kept on identifying me as, "Oh, you're from Taiwan?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm from Canada." Like, what? Where are you getting Taiwan from? It was weird. It was very weird. Yeah, but it was just because they said, "Oh, just the way you look." And I was
Oh,
like, "Oh, interesting." But no. And my family is from the the island of Kyushu, which is the southernmost island of Japan, and I just said, "Not everybody looks like everybody here in Tokyo. Like, I don't really get it." But yeah, so there's like a lot of weird, strange, like othering that was going on the entire time.
the stuff about othering is really interesting too, because I feel like there's not a lot of people like with our experience. So sometimes I feel like I get it from all sides. Like,
Yep.
so, and then I'm kind of like, okay, I'll just be here in the middle.
Yeah,
um,
I think that's a certain place. Like as I said, it's that sort of you fill in these little gaps. And so I don't know if that's a norm for those of us who are like third generation, fourth generation. It might be also I don't know, but it may have some sort of cultural going on there.
One time I was like, as I was finishing up my degree, I kind of was doing some research in databases of like, can I find anything that like describes how I'm feeling? And I couldn't really find anything. Like there isn't really anything out there on like the way like third and fourth generation um, immigrants see like their cultural identity. There isn't really much out there. I think a lot, I found some papers that were saying like, oh, we need to look into this in the future, but not there yet. So that was a little bit
Yeah.
frustrating too, where I wanted someone to justify how I was feeling, but I couldn't find any of that out there.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to find unless you're talking to someone like we are. Like it doesn't happen very often.